carrying 2 mugs of tea. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. He just handed me the mug and sat beside me, letting the steam rise between us like a curtain of quiet understanding. She said, "No." I finally murmured. He nodded. "Because it's in the backyard." I managed a small, bitter laugh. "Because it's not a ballroom, no chandeliers, no monogrammed napkins, no plated beef tenderloin with wine pairings. It doesn't match what she pictured when she imagined the day her daughter got married. She imagined herself in it," he said after a pause. That landed. It wasn't about me. It never was. Mom didn't ask about the lighting design. I spent 6 months building from scratch, recycled glass bottles, and hundreds of tiny LED bulbs I wired by hand. She didn't ask about the way we turned our backyard into a lantern-lit grove, how we dug and replanted the wildflower beds ourselves. She didn't ask why we were limiting it to 25 guests or what it meant to us to share vows where we built our life, not someplace rented by the hour. She only asked once weeks earlier with a scoff. "You're not doing it potluck style, are you?" She didn't wait for an answer. It's strange, isn't it? The way some people shrink a wedding down to its optics. My mother didn't care who I was marrying. She cared what people would say, what they'd wear, what kind of photos would show up on Facebook. She didn't want to be part of my wedding. She wanted to be seen. I gave her an invitation anyway. Printed, not emailed. Embossed, lavender, tied with silk thread. No RSVP ever came. The morning it arrived, she texted me only once. "Looks like something a homeschooler made." I almost laughed. She'd probably forgotten I was homeschooled for 3 years at her request. What do you do when the person who raised you tells you without screaming, without cursing, that your life doesn't measure up? What do you do when your mother decides your most meaningful day isn't even worth an Uber ride? You grieve. Then you keep going. You hang the lights. You press your dress. You rewrite your vows. And you record everything. The space where I used to exist in my mother's world had always been conditional. I was the second daughter, the quieter one, the one who wore her sister's hand-me-downs and never once asked why the family photo albums had entire pages without me in them. At Rachel's wedding, the big one, the one Mom still brags about to anyone with a book club or a holiday newsletter, I wasn't a bridesmaid. I wasn't even seated with the family. I was stationed behind a floral archway, holding a clipboard and a walkie-talkie, making sure the buffet didn't run out of crab cakes and that the violinist didn't start too early. I remember the shoes I wore that day, cheap flats from a clearance bin, blisters by the first dance. I remember Rachel's dress, hand-beaded imported silk, cost more than my college tuition, and how Mom adjusted the train just before the ceremony, tears in her eyes like she was crowning royalty. "You'll get your turn," she whispered when I tried to step into the room for a photo. My turn never came. What I got instead were tasks. "Carry this. Check that. Be useful. Don't be in the way." The only picture I appear in from that entire wedding weekend is a blurry side profile shot where I'm wiping down the cake table in the background. Someone once tagged me in it and called me the help. I laughed. I didn't correct them. By then, I learned my place. So when I told Mom I was planning something small, intimate outdoors, no bridal party, no speeches, just vows and shared bread, she blinked. "Small," she repeated like I'd said illegal. She pursed her lips. "That's disappointing, Julia. Don't you want something people will remember?" I wanted something I would remember. I wanted the people I loved, the man I'd chosen. Music under open sky, plates passed hand to hand instead of cold chicken delivered by servers with name tags. I didn't need chandeliers. I didn't need a $10,000 cake. But Mom's face told me I'd already failed, that my choices embarrassed her, that I not the wedding, not the scale, but I was too small. Rachel called a week later. I thought maybe she was reaching out trying to bridge the growing silence. Instead, she said, "Mom's worried you're having some kind of breakdown." She says, "You're sabotaging your own wedding because you're afraid to be the center of attention." I let her talk. I said, "Thank you." I hung up. They didn't understand. They never had. What I was doing wasn't sabotage. It was reclamation. This wedding this day wasn't a stage for my mother. It wasn't a family PR moment. It wasn't a parade for second cousins I hadn't seen since middle school. It was mine. And I wasn't going to plan it like I was asking permission. The morning of my wedding, the sky was gray, but it wasn't threatening. It was the kind of gray that made colors stand out sharper. the kind that turns every flower into a brushstroke. I stood barefoot on the back porch, staring at the rows of mismatched chairs we'd borrowed from neighbors, each tied with scraps of dyed ribbon. The wind picked up slightly, tugging at the paper lanterns we'd strung between the trees. They danced in silence. Inside, Claire was steaming my dress, a soft cream gown, simple with pockets. She'd sewn it herself. Every seam a small act of love. Malik's cousin was setting out place cards on the long wooden table. No calligraphy, no golden bosin. Just names printed on seeded paper, so each guest could take theirs home and plant something. I walked through the space, slowly touching each chair, each glass jar filled with herbs and field flowers. These weren't placeholders. These were decisions, intentions. Every detail had a reason, and every reason was love. No bridal suite, no makeup team, just my bathroom mirror in my hands. I twisted my hair up into a loose knot, stuck 2 gardenias behind my ear. When I stepped into the dress, it felt like armor, not to defend myself, but to hold myself together. Claire caught my eye in the reflection. "You okay?" I nodded. "I think so." She came behind me, adjusted a loose strap. "You look like yourself." I've never felt more like myself. At 4:12 p.m., the ceremony began. No pralov. Just bird song wind the creak of the gate as the guests entered quietly, respectfully, like stepping into a memory being made in real time. Malik stood at the end of the aisle, which was just the garden path, wearing a navy suit and a crooked smile. His hand shook when he saw me. Mine did too. We didn't have an officiant. We didn't read from a script. We spoke to each other, not to the audience. I don't remember exactly what we said, but I remember what it felt like. Like standing still for the first time in years, like being heard by someone who wasn't waiting for their turn to speak. After we kissed, everyone clapped, not politely but wholeheartedly. My favorite sound. Dinner was served from giant enamel pots, family style. No servers, no plated service, just bowls passed down the table, laughter echoing off the ivy-covered fence, someone humming along to a Van Morrison